All right. Well, good afternoon or good morning, everyone, and welcome to Driving Fan Engagement for Live Sports with Multimodal and Agentic AI. Conversation brought to you by Wizeline and our partners at AWS and 12 Labs. My name is James Rowe. I'm a principal consultant and media engineer here at Wizeline, and I will be your chair today for our conversation. With fans fragmented across platforms and demanding instant, personalized experiences, we're at a tipping point. GenAI multimodal models and agentic AI aren't just tools, they are literally transforming live sports from big broadcast monoliths into dynamic, revenue-driving ecosystems. So in the next 45 minutes, hopefully you'll walk away with strategies to meet fans where they are, deepen those connections through hyper-personalization, and unlock new monetization pathways, all while scaling efficiently. So before we dive in, though, let's meet our powerhouse panel and enjoy a little bit of an icebreaker question. So first, we have Ryan Kurana, the product lead for agentic applications at 12 Labs. He's the mind behind Wombo's 250 plus million downloads and the AI-driven highlights for the MLSEs, Maple Leafs, and Raptors. Ryan, quick question for you, my friend. Any sport, any league, any era, who's your team?
Obviously the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the best era for me is probably the early 2000s.
Right on. Good answer. Okay, and continuing around, we have Mr. Jordan Alexander, Partner Solutions Architect at AWS, a video intelligence expert helping media and sports clients harness their multimodal Gen AI for next-gen experiences. And Mr. Alexander, same question.
College football, Georgia Bulldogs. Best era has got to be the 21, 22 back-to-back national champions. So that's me.
I'm right there with you as a fellow Atlanta resident. So excellent, excellent. Okay, and next we have Jason Dvorkin. He's the head of industry business development for media, entertainment, gaming, and sports at AWS. Over 20 years in live events, from the Patriots productions to AI orchestrated workflows. What about you, Mr. Dvorkin?
That's a leading question for me. So my storied past is I grew up as a New York Jets fan, and then the Patriots started signing my paycheck. So I became a Patriots fan and won a Super Bowl with them in 2004. So I have a ring from that. And then moved to Colorado where my in-laws are fifth, sixth generation Colorado natives, so became a Broncos fan. So it's followed the journey here a little bit. So it's tough to say, but right now I would say that I am a hardened Denver Broncos fan. But the Patriots of 2004 and 2007, minus what happened in February of 2008 with a catch on a helmet, were some definitely fun teams to watch for sure.
Yeah, you're sparking our memories there. All right. And then last but not least, we have my partner, Gino Batista, the Global Director of AI and Industry Solutions at Wizeline. Also with 2 decades of experience in cloud productions and sports at AWS, and he's now with us driving ROI-focused AI in broadcast and monetization. Gino, any sport, any league, any era, who's your favorite team? Oh,
James, we might have lost Gino.
we lost Gino. Okay, he'll be back with that answer. Um, with
Close
that,
hanger.
we're thrilled to have everybody. Thanks for joining us and giving us the time today. Let's start with a bit of the market pulse. So a little bit of a lightning round question here. Fans aren't just watching, they're everywhere, and they're demanding content yesterday. So, what's one challenge or opportunity that you've seen Gen AI crack open in the last 12 months? We'll start with you, Jason.
So I think you hit an interesting thread at your introduction of there is a very big fragmentation pattern happening with sports right now, whether it's where it's being broadcast, how it's being broadcast across multiple networks, platforms, all that stuff. And it becomes a very big challenge to understand and know your fan, and building that data foundation that can then start to be queried by AI agents and generative AI to create and develop those highlight packages or personalized content is becoming more and more critical. And at AWS, we're seeing that all the time with our various customers, is being able to control and manage and understand that fan data makes it so much easier to reach out and personalize and go across these various platforms to make sure that you are serving the relevant content, not just the content or highlights or recaps of former events, but also for these organizations to be able to sell tickets and monetize on those fans and draw them into the arena and have them buy the merchandise and contribute and play fantasy sports and place bets. It all comes together, but having that solid data foundation established and being able to use the AI to query on top of that makes that fragmentation seem a lot less, and provides a pathway for organizations to continue to delight their fans.
Excellent. Ryan, anything you would add to that you've seen in the last 12 months from your perspective?
Yeah, I think what Jason said makes a lot of sense, right? It resonates, but the other kind of component is that very few of younger sports fans are watching the entire games now because of how fast-paced and frenetic most media platforms are. What their demand for is highlights and stats. And so you have a lot of people that are just engaging on like team apps or stats feeds. But what would really engage them is if they got to see just that moment at just that time. So the speed at which highlights are being clipped out and pushed to multiple platforms is a really important thing for various leagues and teams to stay relevant to their fans.
Excellent. As a user, I can attest to that. Jordan, anything to add from your side?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with what Jason and Ryan said. Just to kind of add on to that content discovery lens, I think that Gen AI and Agentic AI is just shifting that classical debate of what what our customers in the forms of teams and leagues can do with archival data as well. There's that constant debate of, do we leave it there? How do we use it? How do we monetize it? Now that's shifted around a little bit. It's still the same debate, but Gen AI gives you faster access, more accurate access, and allows you to find your content a lot faster and do new things with it. So that's the lens where you can begin to really engage your fans in different ways in a more efficient and fast approach.
All while boosting confidence. Yes, sir. Gino,
So
rounding
the
question.
Jeter era Yankees, are we still on that question? Sorry, I
Yes,
lost
you never got
connection.
to answer that, so absolutely.
No, so apologies for the connectivity issues. But yeah, I believe some of the points that my esteemed panelists have mentioned are definitely great ways that generative AI is revolutioning the way we think about live sports content and fan engagement. Some of the interesting things we're discussing with a lot of our customers is how to leverage some of the ways they've been accelerating the creation of content and covering things like everything from press conferences, which they couldn't cover before, but can now do, leveraging generative AI, to tier two sports, high school, college. So the ability to produce and cover a lot more types of sports that fans can't usually get access to, or being able to follow, some of their favorite players, on and off of the field. Generative AI has really accelerated the way that sports organizations and franchises are able to cover that and distribute that content.
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about the cloud native components here and how that weaves in. Jason, how is AWS enabling some of these seamless Gen AI integrations in these fragmented journeys that we just spoke of?
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of customers struggle with that. And like I said, it starts with that sound data foundation. And once you have that data foundation, that starts to unlock everything else. We've seen organizations like the PGA Tour move 27 petabytes worth of archive content from on-premises storage into the cloud so that it can then be accessible to services like a 12 Labs to help do that video understanding and help to surface up that content so it can be used for other use cases. I think what the cloud has provided is a lot of that scale and a lot of that inference for model training and development. And that helps now to bring multiple sources of content and data together. So again, using the PGA Tour as an example, their entire scoring system, ShotLink, runs on AWS, and ShotLink can track every single golf ball happen in flight across 18 unique fields of play at any given point in time of a tournament. And they could track every single, the velocity, the altitude, the arc of that shot. All of that data exists. So now when you marry that with a video archive, you're not just searching for the specific player and the specific moment. You can get down to the shot, the club selection. You can get all of that enhanced data. And then that just opens the door for unlimited possibilities of what you want to do with that generative AI. Do you want to create that promo piece? Do you want to create the new branded campaign that's going to help serve the sponsors who have the rights to use athletes in their marketing materials? It's going to give the fans who have that deep affinity for Victor Hovland, and you live in the United States, but Victor might not be on the leaderboard at the time, so you're not seeing what's happening in his traditional coverage on broadcast. But now you could start to be able to serve that information up to your fans. We see that a lot with their Every Shot Live product that they do, capturing every single shot at the Players' Championship and distributing that internationally and to streaming partners. So it really gives the fan that ability to kind of choose their own adventure and consume the content in a way that makes sense to them and aligns with their affinity. And again, it starts with that data foundation. It starts by moving that media into the cloud and taking advantage of the scale and breadth of services that we offer to help drive those outcomes.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Absolutely.
so I was just gonna, ask you there, Jason. I think you brought up a point, a really good point there about, changing consumer behaviors and, audiences and fans wanting to see content in the way that that where they are, for example, in mobile, in vertical video formats. So, between yourself and also for Ryan, how are you seeing generative AI, things like 12 Labs, multimodal foundation models, AWS Bedrock? How are they enhancing and accelerating the way that content can get created for these different modalities?
Brian, do you want to jump first?
Sure, yeah. So the Jason used the term data earlier, and I don't think a lot of organizations think of their video as data. They think of video as things you scrub through and you clip out moments from, which as a consequence means it takes a lot of time to produce good content. And a lot of, the content creators who work at these organizations, they have a good feel for what resonates with fans. But you have a trade-off as a consequence of like, do I want their expertise and spend all that time to the point where the moment doesn't resonate anymore because it took us several hours to get it out. And that's what our models have enabled for numerous teams. I can speak to MLSE in particular with the Leafs and the Raptors. They're using and leveraging the capability of semantic search, this idea of describe the moment and it will return all the clips that match it. And the capability is much more advanced than just taking a stats feed and saying, find me the goals, which are timestamped. So that's not terribly hard. But you notice a lot of fans when you just get compilations of the goals without the preceding context, without the fan engagement, it feels automatic or rote. But now if I can just describe the story I want to see the players celebrating after a goal. I want cuts to the fans as they're at their peak screaming. Our models can find all of those, the context, the sequence of actions, the emotional resonance in seconds, which used to probably take humans way more to just digest what's happening. And as a consequence, you can push out the exact pieces of content your fans are looking for near instantaneously, right? And so that's a new content avenue for a lot of these companies.
Yeah, and I think on that track too, Ryan's right on the video side. I mean, I think being able to have that deeper understanding of content, not everybody has that luxury of having their scoring data automatically married to video content, right? So it does, especially for older content or as these systems have iterated over time, having that true deeper contextual understanding of what's happening in that piece of content is huge. I think where we're seeing a lot of people leveraging generative AI is on those derivative pieces of content. Gino, you mentioned press conferences, right? Is it really worth my human being sitting there and watching the 25-minute press conference to then create this synopsis that's going to go out as part of my web story? Or is there a better, more efficient way to do that? And that's a lot of what we're seeing with generative AI of how can it take that specific moment that just happened, and now you tie an agentic to that, and then maybe that does craft the story for the website. Maybe that does crawl your image database to find the best image that fits with the brand integrity and the parameters around what images you can use, and then can publish that piece of content out to multiple outlets simultaneously, taking the time that, it would take to do 140 to 180 articles a day. Maybe it takes it down to being able to double that workload, but publish those almost instantaneously, and driving the costs down for what it would take to do that article, because you are being able to use those agents and having more of a human in the loop as opposed to a human trying to drive that behavior and that activity fully. It changes the game a little bit and definitely creates that opportunity to create more and provide more content to the fans in different formats and on different platforms.
Yeah, I love that. And you guys mentioned a lot about how generative AI is different from just marrying, score and sports data with content, but it's actually understanding, like having eyes and ears to really understand what's happening in the moment, from the response of the crowd to celebrations by players, things that, obviously aren't going to show up on a stats feed. I want to dive a little bit deeper into this, for any of the panelists. Are we seeing that the capabilities of some of the generative AI foundation models, multimodal foundation models, are improving now to be able to find those exact moments with a level of precision that used to only be possible with humans?
Yeah, for sure. Right? Like it's what 12 Labs is building are video understanding models, and video understanding is not anchored on the same thing as video recognition. It's hard to kind of distinguish those two, but traditionally, recognition models, which have been around for a long time, right? Like AWS is a leader; it has AWS recognition, like where you can identify people and action and object inside of a video. That allows you to get fairly far, right? Going back to the stats feed comment, those are the kinds of technologies that enabled that to occur. But what video understanding is it's a leap beyond, because instead of saying, here's what the frame I'm looking at is there a person? Is there an object? What our models enable is an understanding of the visual, the audio, the time dependence, like what happened before in the video that led up to this moment, and the spatial relationship. Where was the person or the object in the preceding clip, and where are they now? And that, even though it seems just additive, is actually quite transformational, because treating each frame as its own sequence, right? Like treating a sports game as if it's a series of pictures is missing out on a lot. Treating it as if it's video, which is a radically different amount of fidelity to reality, allows you to unlock a lot more. And I think we're only scratching the surface currently of all of the things that the model actually enables. So the tech is there, the creative utilization of its capabilities, we're still in the early days. Like video understanding is still new. It hasn't had its ChatGPT moment, so people haven't wrapped their heads around the use cases. But on day one of ChatGPT, people saw potential. But 2 years in, we're having an economy that's far more transformed by it than anyone kind of expected on day one.
Yeah, and just to add, I totally agree with Ryan. The models are definitely getting better and improving, but behind that, the architectures and the way that people are using those is becoming much more structured than what we saw even just a year ago. So people are really learning how to build architectures that leverage the video intelligence and video understanding of a model like what 12 Labs has, to details about the athletes, details about the organization, details about the fans that are engaging on whatever platform they're engaging on. So these architectures are coming together in such a way that they're really beginning to take advantage of this fusion of data to drive the engagement and really help like the agents in the background that are kind of making these decisions and pulling data together and doing quality reviews, making sure that they're well prepared and have the context that they need to make those good decisions as well. So, and I expect that those architectures and the way that people are using the models will improve at a similar clip, in the future as the models are.
I wanted to also just jump in because I see a question from Sean in the chat, right? He employs hundreds of editors and he's asking, is this AI meant to take away work from them? It's meant to take away the boring tasks from them, and that liberates them to do the creative work that I'm sure that they actually wanted to do. So having spent a lot of time working with sports teams, almost every editor I spoke to hated the drudgery of having to scrub back and forth to find the precise moment. And because they have deadlines, because they have time to get like only a limited amount of time to get the thing that they want out, the stuff that editors excel at, right? The color grading, the ensuring that the transitions are smooth, are things that are put on the sidelines while they're just saying, do I have the right moments? So by speeding up their discoverability, two things occur. One is that they have more time to do that creative work. Secondly, if they're working faster, they can create more versions of the same output. And it only means that you're thinking in terms of taking away a job if you're saying that there's a fixed amount of content we actually want to publish. And if we do that faster, we need less people. But think of it another way. If I have 100 people right now and they're each working 60% faster, well, can we push out 4 or 5 times more content to different platforms in different versions, be more personalized to our fans? And if that works, right, if that generates ROI, maybe you'll hire even more editors down the line because you're making a lot more money off the effective marketing. So, like, I think we should frame this as an opportunity to speed up and do more rather than just cut jobs.
Yeah,
I,
and
I,
thanks for addressing that question, Ryan. You kind of jumped in right when I was going to, and I think it is important to remember that there are categories of an editor's workflow: spotting assets, crafting narratives, prepping for publish, and those will all continue to be overseen by them. Don't see that probably changing, as you were saying, Ryan. But that autonomy kind of does power the holy grail from the end of that hyper-personalization outcome, right? And that leads me into another good question. Jason, how are some of these multimodal foundation models getting us out of more broad segments and into that hyper-personalized delivery, like clips that are tuned to a fan's vibe in real time?
I think it's like I said before, it's what is the data set that can be fed to help those agents make the right decisions. So how well do you truly know that fan? What are their buying tendencies? Who are their favorite players? Is it actually them who are attending games? And I think when you can start to combine that, marry that up with the events that are actually happening in a game or in a preceding game or a milestone that a player could be undergoing that night, being able to make that one-for-one connection does offer the ability now to, again, generate those highlight clips and publish them and push them directly to that user. Creates excitement, creates buzz, gets them excited about that next engagement. But now you add to that, right? So you just sent me that great player or that great highlight of Jordan Alexander at the game last night to Milestone. Maybe I should send you that ticket reminder that tells you, in addition to the video, his bobblehead is coming up in 2 weeks and you might want to buy tickets. Or, by the way, our pro shop's doing a sale on his jersey. You could actually hit this button right now. We'll have that delivered to you before you even get to your next game. All of that stuff starts to factor in. And then it's even deeper analysis too in that fan data of what are the tendencies. I think it was Ryan who brought it up before of with the shifting in the demographics and how fans are consuming content. You're right, might just be on a stats feed and you might just want to push me a whole bunch of stats because I'm going to make some prop bets. Or maybe there was a camera angle that I didn't see in the broadcast that's that all 22 high look with some telestration on top of it that maybe I do want to capture that. And that is how you reach out to me. So building that knowledge base and that fan data set then makes it even easier to combine that with video libraries and tagged video content that you have to then build out these packages across these agents and push them out to exactly where the fan is at that moment in time.
Yeah, yeah. And Jason, and Jordan, I've heard you guys use the term agents quite a bit, and we're not talking about Agent Smith for the Matrix. For those laymen, in layman terms, how would you define agents, but not just in the context of generative AI, but in the context of creating content, especially for live sports?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we just start with agents, I mean, agentic indicates agency. So really the way that I like to think of any agent, regardless of where it applies, is can that agent, can that piece of code or that call to an LLM actually make decisions for itself when it reaches out for another tool? If it doesn't, if it's a deterministic process, it's not agentic. It's not an agentic use case. So in the context of, building content or analyzing statistics in a live game so that broadcasters have fast access to it, these agents are able to look at this data and make decisions based on their usage of tools to do things like pull a certain highlight that might align to what a broadcaster is saying at a specific moment, or build a specific query for the number of plays that were run in a specific drive that indicates the success in the next drive. Things like this before you might have had to have had a set of procedures that the league or broadcast might have to run specifically, and they get the same set of data every time. The broadcasters know to expect it. But now that procedure can be tailored by the agent based on what's happened in the context of the game. So you can get new data in new ways that drive new conversations and really allow broadcasters to get new information that might have historically only been available in a post-game commentary. Now it's available during the game or during halftime, or that sort of thing. So the ability for the agents to make decisions, use tools on their own, and build these queries out in real time is really the thing that's kind of changing the game.
Yeah, and I think Jordan did a really good job there. To dive a layer deeper, right, and paint a little bit of a picture here, right? I'm trying to write an article for my team's website. I go to my computer, I put in a little request of write me an article about X, Y, and Z. Well, that request goes to the content prep agent, and that content prep agent is taking that input and crawling through some of the data that we might have, which could be scoring data and player information. And then it might be crawling through another data set, which is that video archive, and compiling that. Then an editor agent realizes, hey, you know what? We've got all the pieces that we need. Let's pass this off to a writer agent who's going to go and take all that stats data, items from media guides and press releases, and actually craft the story based on what happened in this image. And oh, by the way, that image or video that we pulled from the initial request, now an agent's going to review that. Well, is it the right shape? Is it not upside down? It's placed correctly. It adheres to brand guidelines. Okay, cool. We've got a story. We've got a picture or a video. Now we're going to pass it to the validator agent who's got that final decision making in the process to go, is the story right? Are we telling the right things? Is that picture actually who it's supposed to be? Does this meet what the request of the creative team was for an article? Yep, cool, publish. If not, maybe I should flag this for a human review and get somebody to give me a final approval. But this becomes a way that you could really start to push that content out in different fashions and in different formats faster. And that's that real world workflow that, as we said, editors aren't going to go away. It's a lot of the stuff that they have to do in that prep and that gathering and that organization that doesn't need that human being and that high level thought. There can be agents with rules behind that that can make those decisions on your behalf.
Yeah, and while we're zoomed in on the organizational kind of lens a little bit here, let's transition into talking about the monetization aspect, because efficiency, especially at this table, is table stakes, but monetization is the win. So Gino, let's start with you. How's Agentic AI not just streamlining live content ops like we've been discussing, but sparking new monetization and revenue opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I want to build upon what a lot of the other folks on the panel have been discussing. It's, now that we're creating more content, we're getting more personalized. We're finding new types of sports or types of content that audiences weren't able to get, for example, or distributing that on, for example, on social media. Um, you know, you're covering all this new content. You have to create all of it. So you're using agents to accelerate those workflows. You can now personalize that a lot more, leveraging agentic workflows. For example, you have a World Series game and you have a fan that is in Japan versus a fan that is in the US, right? You might have a different take. You might build an agent that's able to understand your audience, assuming you have that audience data, and then create a highlight reel, and it's multiple agents working together to find using foundation models to tag that data of, Otani, hitting a home run, um, versus, Will Smith hitting a home run, right? And now you're creating all this content that's now more personalized. You're going to have a lot higher engagement on that content. So how do you monetize that? Well, there's a lot of interesting ways that we've been working with our tool, which is Wise Media Suite, to produce vertical video, leveraging different types of foundation models to distribute that content, to find the right, not just the right moment, but the right framing of it, and get that pushed out very quickly onto social media. But you can also do things like brand sponsored content, right? So for a fan of Otani, maybe you have a shoppable link, right? Sponsored by, you name the brand, and they can sell the Otani jersey versus, another player's jersey. And so those are some of the ways that you're able to actually insert some of those ad spots into the content that you're creating. So whether it's brand sponsorship, and I think also in the future, you're going to start to see a lot more in the pre-roll and post-roll matching of context in a contextual advertising way. So, not just blanketing every audience member with the same type of ad, but maybe Nike wants to pay more when a person's favorite team is actually winning, right? Their likelihood of them buying or purchasing might be much higher. So maybe they'll pay a little bit more for that pre-roll ad positioning, an ad spot. And a lot of those, are going to rely on the ad tech platforms today. I think it's a little early for programmatic, but there's a lot of, developments, for example, with Amazon ads, leveraging agents to facilitate direct buys, right, for those kind of premium ad spots. So these are a lot of the ways that I think you can see, combination of, generative AI and agents enabling higher premium ad inventory.
I would add to Gino's point, and I think he's spot on. I think what the generative AI can do and the agents, again, as I mentioned before, on that brand integrity with an image or a video, I think you start to have an opportunity now to introduce new ad mediums or automation for ad mediums that would typically have been controlled by broadcast, right? So maybe it is a squeeze back and there's something relevant that happened in the game. You have a sponsor that ties to that. You want to run an ad at that point, but not take your fans away from the action. Maybe there is something that a player just did, and there is an opportunity to use the agent to go, yeah, you know what, if you use that upper right-hand corner of the screen right now, you've got good real estate. You could pop a logo up behind you or something like that, right? And be aware of where to do it. Because the last thing you would want to do is in the middle of the touchdown celebration or the goal celebration and you have everybody gathering is to put that big logo directly over the action. These agents can help with that. And that video understanding can give you that real estate that's available to make that decision to then put that content on the screen. And I think it does inject a new opportunity to be more real time and more precise and capitalize on those big moments and make sure that you're collecting that revenue as well, or that click through revenue or that sell through revenue. That can all be a part of that.
And James, I think, you have some experience as well, kind of talking about what Jason's mentioning about, higher engagement or more interactive ways to engage audiences and, monetize that content. Could you tell us a little bit more about how you think Shoppable might be possible through some of these new avenues?
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked a little bit about video, but we have to remember too that a lot of content that's used in B-roll or behind commentary is still images. And you've seen a big, explosion of content in the HTML5 graphics space, which is, of course, a nice home for shoppable components. and still images that have deep links to shoppable experiences that users can engage with across these fragmented platforms that we've mentioned. So I think we're going to see more and more of the hyper-personalization bleed over into shoppable opportunities in those different forms. And with the ability to deliver it as a still image, you'll see, it's a very easy way to integrate into the players and the platforms that exist now. So the adoption rate of that will probably be pretty high. But yeah, as we go ahead, Jason.
Sorry, James. I mean, to your point, I think you're spot on. I mean, I think that the days of just the 30-second spot, the 15-second spot, there's not enough. I think that shoppable component is going to get bigger, and I think that's what the consumer behavior is driving us toward. I joke all the time, right? Getting that hyper personalization right is key. Capitalizing on a Gillette ad and then serving me a shampoo product to click through and buy is probably not going to get you very far. But if you put a razor ad on that ad, you're probably going to see a higher return for me. But again, with understanding what's happening in the video, understanding the time of game, right? So if you're consuming this on your device, you have a partnership with Grubhub or DoorDash, it's getting close to halftime. Isn't that the right time that you want to flash that DoorDash ad with a little banner that says, hey, order now and you might have your food at your house before halftime? That's huge. You know how I'm consuming it. You know what my location is. You know what the average queue time is on DoorDash. This is probably a fantastic avenue for some of that shoppable components and that sell through. And again, we can't capitalize enough on your favorite player scores the game-winning goal, touchdown, basket at the buzzer, whatever you want it to be, home run, or realizes that it should have been a ground rule double and doesn't pick it up under the padding. You want that jersey. So how do you make sure that you could just touch that player or something on the screen, and the next thing you know, that jersey is ready for you to wear to work or school tomorrow, and you capture that affinity?
So and we're talking about monetization, Jason, and I'm going to ask Jordan this as well. Is the business case for leveraging generative AI in live sports, is it primarily monetization and revenue? What is some of the business cases, Jordan, that you're seeing? Perhaps whether that's in editorial workflows, efficiency, content creation, throughput, revenue. What are some of the business cases that you're working deep with your customers on when people are testing out new solutions and trying to make the case to deploy that at scale?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still a lot in the stage of a lot of cost optimization. But James, you mentioned at the beginning that that's table stakes, and I tend to, there's part of me that agrees, part of me that disagrees. Cost optimization is always going to be very important for organizations, and I think cost optimization also goes hand in hand with the productivity gains that we see in the editorial workflows. But like you said, the revenue opportunities that we're seeing are, in the ad space, in developing new content that leverages, the archival assets that you're already paying for, making sure that you're generating some level of ROI on those assets, and then getting that in front of fans so that they ultimately buy something or buy tickets. I think Jason mentioned that in the beginning. Like, there's a lot of focus on, just enabling the sellers within the leagues and teams so that they can target fans, sell tickets. And then on the merchandise side of things, I think, again, the jersey use case, like how do I intelligently put these opportunities to buy all of this retail merchandise in the game while it's happening, or post game after a SEC championship win or a national championship win, focusing on, hey, I've got this new championship gear that I want to sell, and it's targeted towards your team or your specific player that I know that you bought previously. So I think a lot of that's definitely the top tier items when I think of the monetization use cases. And then you get into like the engagement side of things, like how do I make sure my fans stick around so that I can just sell ads during the programming. And that, I think, is where enhanced broadcasting is really key. So we're seeing a lot of use cases where we want to take advantage of like audio and video and all of the feeds that these games have, from the sideline, the players being mic'd up, all of that, so that you can look and say, did one team's offensive coordinator make the right decision in this moment based on what the other defensive coordinator was saying on the sideline, and providing all of that to the broadcaster so they can comment against it. That kind of thing is engaging. And yeah, I think there's lots of examples of that. A personal example, like this year, the ACC is, letting you listen to the referees when they do reviews. And I think that that's just really awesome and engaging as a fan to be able to hear that review happening. Imagine if that was somehow like piped into, intelligence the broadcasters had access to constantly for all of the conferences. I think that would be really engaging for a fan, and just continue to bring them back. And that would create more value for the ads that are placed during the game.
Yeah. And I think, also really quickly, just commenting on some of the stuff, Jordan, that we've been doing on the business case. A lot, AI isn't free, and of course, compute isn't always cheap. But sometimes, you want to get started. You have these ideas, and you want to prove that business case that it works. And I think one of the things I enjoy working with AWS is, proving out that it is possible to do some of these things, whether that's accelerating content creation, creating different types of forms, more liquid content that could be distributed more quickly. But once you prove that you can do it, how do you cost optimize it, build it in a scalable, resilient way, as AWS says, well-architected framework, using the well-architected framework review, especially with the GenAI lens on it, right? And do that in a very cost-performant way, in a very secure way that protects your data, protects your content, which you have rights to. So I think, that's also very important when you're putting together your business case. So I know we're getting down to the wire here on the call, but just a quick round for everybody. If someone did want to get started on some of these use cases and these solutions, starting with you, Ryan, how could somebody get started? What would your advice be to get started?
Yeah, so you can test out 12 labs from our website, use the playgrounds. You can upload a couple of videos, and then just test out the search functionality to find what you're looking for. Test out, analyze, get, chapter summaries, more actionable insights from the videos that you've uploaded. And then that'll give you a good feel for what video understanding models enable. There's tons of use cases that we support, everything from generating highlights from existing content. So this is not purely generative. We're not making things that are net new. It's based on your content, to operationalizing, converting video games to highlights or summaries, to things like recommending next videos, right? Companies like Facebook and Netflix have extremely large tech infrastructures to recommend people what they want. We enable that for our customers based on their video understanding corpus alone. So this really reduces the barriers to create a full-fledged product. So yeah, test out the product on our website, get a sense for what it can do to you, reach out, and as a company, we're always helpful and supportive of coming up with new use cases with our customers.
Awesome. Any last words, Jordan and Jason from AWS?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing, Gen AI, Agentic, it's here, right? I think you ask how you get started. I think it's just do it. Jump in. Whether it is with 12 labs, or talking to Gino and the Wizeline team, or those of us at AWS, like, let's have the conversation. Let's figure out what the challenge that you're looking to solve is, and drive that business efficiency, that operational efficiency, that fan engagement piece. Let's figure out what the right use case is. Dive in, really look at that workflow. And guess what? If it doesn't go right the first time, that's cool. Let's step back. Let's iterate. Let's try it again. I think that's what we're seeing, as easily as everybody is flocking to the different AI bots and impacting search and impacting so many things. Just don't be fearful of it. Embrace it. And let's figure out what the right fit is and what the right use case is to get you the outcome that you're really looking for.
Yep, fantastic insights. And it's an inspiring roadmap. I want to thank each and every one on our panel today. for helping light this path for the audience. I think the key takeaway is AI is not disrupting sports, it's empowering it in a big way. So thank everybody for joining. Let's get out there and engage those fans. You can look for a email follow-up from us as a group after this. And again, thanks everybody for joining and for your time today.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.